Chapter 2. Summer.
Intergalactic Dating. Profile match. #184054. Claude. Country of origin. Camalosian. Species. Camalosian. Age. 7,640. Eyes. 2. Swiveling. Skin colour. Green and scaly. Characteristics. Unusually strong for Camalosian. Length. Active. Money-bearing. Make-believe. Most likely to. Method. Martin. Point of origin. Maggrumph. Species. Maggrumph. Age. 709. Eyes. 2. Red and beady. Skin colour. Grey. Natural colour. Characteristics. Unusually sociable for Maggrumph. Likes. Acting. Make-believe. Most likely to. Acting just around the right range.
It was summer. The planet summer, to be exact. Giant golden orbs hung in the sky above what looked oddly like an English quarry. Various eyes glinted in the darkness, and a shadow that looked a little like a caveman's sprod fell over the land. Suddenly, without warning, the peace and quiet of the planet was interrupted by the sound of a metallic thrumming and the invasion of a sudden vrort-vrort noise, and a space and time-travelling table appeared as if out of nowhere. After a few seconds, a door suddenly opened up from under the table, a little like a sliding drawer. A tiny furry Habridats figure with an open face popped her head out. She was clutching what looked like a sonic vegetable peeler in one paw and a tuber in the other, while dressed in a blue suit, a multicoloured scarf and a pullover covered in exclamation marks, while her top pocket contained what looked like a lettuce leaf from which the figure periodically nibbled. After sticking out her nose and sniffing the air for danger, finally she wadded out from underneath the table and called behind her.
Smell the fresh air of this alien world. It's like all the plants that ever bloomed in summer anywhere in the universe are opening up all at once and combining to make one great aroma.
Her Maggrumph companion stuck his head out the table door, though he found it much more difficult to extricate himself, and he fell over. He was dressed in a kilt and had a hat perched jauntily over one antler.
Huh,
he said, sniffing.
this air smells a little too alien to me.
The Habridats turned her furry head back to him, all teeth, curls and whiskers.
Now don't be silly, Jamie Maggrumph. Of course it's alien. We are on an alien planet after all. Where are your manners?
Eat the bescarfed figure.
You probably don't smell too good to them either, you know.
Harumph.
Sputtered Jamie.
Where are we anyway, nurse? And why are we here?
The figure sighed and put her hands on her furry hips.
We had to reset the space-time coordinates, remember? It was just after we dropped Victoria off to study graphology. How those Camalosians love munching their pencils. And then we intercepted that very interesting alien message that interfered with our universal and pulled us in from space.
Jamie scoffed.
Oh yeah, but I still think we only got that message because you forgot to renew your internet bill.
Wow,
Said the time-travelling rodent, pulling a face.
maybe that happened too. It's hard to keep track of debit accounts and paying everything in the right order when you're always travelling around in time and space. Sometimes bills go out twice, and sometimes not at all. Well, we had nowhere else to go anyway, did we?
She checked her vegetable peeler,
Oh, listen,
and she added,
it started making eeping beeping noises.
Well, that's a surprise.
deadpanned Jamie.
That thing's always making some noise or other.
He looked around at the planet.
Boy, what a tongue. It's worse than Earth.
He suddenly froze.
Hang on a minute. What's that, nurse?
The rodent looked up and sniffed the air. Like all Habridats, she was very good at sensing danger.
There's nothing there.
She laughed.
Seriously, Jamie, I think you're starting to lose it.
Hey,
Said the Maggrumph forcibly.
I'll have you know that I've saved your scrolling neck so many times now.
Shh,
Said the rodent, putting her paws to her lips.
you're right, there is something. Behind us.
Both of the figures turned round, scared.
What is it, Nurse?
Breathed in the Maggrumph.
I don't know.
Squeaked the Time Rodent.
But it has a lot of legs and it's crawling up your back right now. Oh, my giggly second cousin. All right, when I say run, run. Or we could just burn a rock at it.
Too late, Nurse,
said the Maggrumph as he collapsed to the floor, holding his antlers in agony. Soon the nurse joined him, both of them rolling on the floor in agony, as a mechion mat, a tiny robotic creature that looked a little like an insect, but one that was bigger than any natural insect in the universe, excluding the Raisinards, scuttled its way over the top of their bodies, glinting in the sunlight of summer.
We'll never get out of this one. We're doomed. Cut.
Called out the director, and the actors rolled over from underneath the protuberances, getting up stiffly and handing them to the props department.
Another load of tosh this week, geek.
Claimed the Maggrumph, in a much posher voice than the one he had used in character.
It's not like it used to be when Dussel T. Ravis was in charge, or even Stofford, or Tom J. from Burner, or Harry Pitchcliffe, or Wahan Grahams, or Larry Betts, or Larry Lambert. She was my favourite.
Heaped the Glabderhardit actress, who sounded much the same as their character.
I think it's still miraculously good considering how long the programme's been running and how small the budget is. Do you realise that it's our 400th anniversary season this year? Since the original show started on Earth, I mean. I love the fact that it manages to stay so fresh, that the central character is regenerated 114 times into 11 different species by now. There are so many episodes to watch, it would take a century to view them all, even if you did nothing else all day.
The Maggrumph laughed.
Yeah, well, Flo, to be it's just an acting job.
The Glabderhardit looked at him, as if trying to work out if he was telling the truth or not.
You don't mean that?
She squeaked at last.
This isn't just a show, this is a calling.
The Maggrumph harumphed, still half in character.
Yeah? Well, for me, the only thing that's calling right now is my trailer, you furry Northern Mariner. I'm tired of filming in cold-drafted quarries and unsuitable habitats and freezing my antlers off on location, only to be bored half an hour in some impractically hot costume back in the studio, or while passing in your test tubes will tell you how terribly funny you are, and asking, but what does that mean, Nurse? Every 3 minutes, isn't it? Sometimes I think I'm getting too old for this part. Do you part?
The Glabderhardit looked him up and down and laughed.
Says you? You're what, 21? You wait till you're 300, playing a character who's a quadrillion years old.
The Maggrumph paused and his stance softened.
Even so, I'm starting to think that there's a whole world out there, and I'm missing it in here, my dear. Even if here I get to travel in all time and space, all I get to see is your same old face. Depending on budget, another little nuggets.
Don't leave me, Martin, please,
said the Glabderhardit.
we're having too much fun.
She sighed sadly.
I'm missing the old Camalosian being here already, and it's only been a week without her. I know we're getting another Camalosian in, a male, but it won't be the same. Willard, we make a great team, us three.
The Maggrumph smiled.
Oh, Jamie, you'll have a new companion soon. You'll like just as much, Sue. You wait and see. I know how you like to get involved in things. It's only an acting part, you know, darling.
The Glabderhardit laughed.
You wait, there are 500 years of audiobooks to record for Think Biddish in our retirement. Once you're in this job, it's a job for life. You can never escape. Not would I ever want to.
The Maggrumph laughed.
Well, a beach at pension, I suppose, bro. Anyway, if you want me, I'll be in the gloom of my dressing room. This spotlight is far too bright.
Hello, I said shyly, holding out my claw and shaking hands. I'm Claude the Camalosian, and I'm looking forward to working with you both most precipitously. I was just surveying the recording of your preceding setting and found it enhanced my enjoyment perceptors considerably. I am a most fervent supporter of this show, and your exclusive epoch in particular. I will endeavour to hold up the monumental standards by which this programme has become an intergalactic hit and maintain the principles and values established by my antecedents. I must divulge, however, that currently I'm ever so nervous. This is my first job out of drama school, my first anything really. I'm a bit green, and I don't just mean because of my skin colour. I realised I was gabbling, and that I was still shaking claws so that by now my 2 co-stars were being shaken up and down. Sheepishly I stopped and withdrew my claw.
Nice to meet you, Claude,
said June, walloping me on the back.
Well, welcome to the team. Now I'm off to get some some sandwiches from the catering man. It's a Dewsbury one, so I hope the fillings are bigger on the inside.
How do, you,
said Martin, staring at me intensely. So intensely I had to break eye contact and look at the floor, though I could already tell that he was much more cheerful and enthusiastic in real life than he was in character.
So, Star, how are you finding things so far?
I confess that circumstances have overloaded my sensory intake to an unusually high capacity to a degree I find most disconcerting. Realising that I was beginning to babble again, I stopped and smiled, switching to the more genial, relaxed style of conversation I used around non-Camalosians. A bit overwhelming, if I'm honest. I've never been in a long-running series before. I'm not a star, I'm just a bit who plays bit parts. Martin smiled.
We've all been there, yeah. You have to start somewhere. You'll get used to it, Ned. Have you spoken to the Holland critics yet, Pet? Or we mentioned at the Franca mentions?
I confessed I had not.
No, that's when the real pressure starts to get hot,
said Martin, grinning.
Don't worry, though. We've all been through it. We'll help you, you know.
Oh, good, I smiled with relief. I was worried that I might seem like an intrusion, joining such a long-running show partway through a series. You've all been together so many weeks.
It seems like years, dear,
said Martin gruffly, but he still smiled at me while he said it, to let me know he was half joking. It was a sly sort of smile, the sort of smile that suggested hidden depths, of the sort that made me want to run away with him right there. Just for a second my heart skipped a beat. My skin must have turned an embarrassing shade of red too, because he laughed at me.
10 minutes till showtime,
called the director, a Belobrat who was shouting into 3 megaphones and giving 3 different orders all at once, one for the actors, another for the film crew, another to the props department. My first scene. Even though I had been prepared for days and knew all my lines backwards, literally, I'd only discovered after a few days that I'd been holding my script upside down, I was suddenly very nervous indeed. I'm not sure I'm ready, I had.
Nonsense,
scoffed Martin.
Don't worry about a thing, Penguin. You must be sorted good, dear, or you wouldn't be allowed to be here.
June walked past just then, with a plate of sandwiches twice as big as her.
Doris is on again,
she squeaked with excitement.
I love it when Dewsbury Giants do the catering. I got some food for everyone. Now, don't worry about a thing, Claude. We're family and we protect each other. So if you get stuck for a line, just look worried and one of us will fill in for you. If something goes very wrong, we'll catch it in the editing suite.
Everyone's so kind, thank you, I smiled. It feels so nice to be part of something bigger than me. Life was so lonely on Camalosian. It feels good to make a new start here.
What got you in such a spot, Dot?
asked Martin with concern. But it was too late. The time was up and we were being ushered back onto the set, which now resembled planet Earth. Ignoring my nerves, I tried to soak in the atmosphere, pretending that I really was on an alien planet. After all, Earth was perhaps the most alien planet of all. I was suddenly on an alien planet, in what looked awfully like a quarry. Then, just as suddenly, there was a puff of sparkly orange pixie dust as the rodent Time Lord instantaneously appeared next to me, but the wrong way round so that her tail was facing me. She was still squeaking too, as if she had arrived in the middle of a conversation.
Alonso, as I said the last time I was on the F1 grid in the 21st century, good job I managed to reverse the polarity of the neutron flow in time before the cyber rodents got us, eh, Jamie?
She looked around her in mock horror.
Jamie? Oh no, I set the temporal coordinates wrong. He's still out there in danger somewhere.
She looked around and spotted me for the first time, a shy and timid Camalosian clutching my briefcase and legal contracts under my arm, and a pair of headphones glued to my ears.
And I seem to have locked onto the wrong coordinates somehow and beamed you from another planet by mistake. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I can get you out of this, I promise. I have a plan. Maybe. Well, half a plan. Well, half an idea that might end up as half a plan. Well, half and a half an idea. Is that just a thought then? Yes, that's it. A thought that might end up as an idea, that might end up as a plan. Anyway, don't just stand there asking questions. Who are you?
I'm damn the Camalosian, I said, stretching out my claw as in character as I could manage. Who are you?
The nurse,
said the figure. Nurse who? I asked.
That's right,
nodded the multicoloured Glabderharded.
Sorry, no time to talk. When I squeak, run! Geronimo!
Wait, I said. You didn't say run! Before I quite knew what was happening there, I was, struggling to keep up with the stranger as her fast paws scuttled away from me at a rate of knots. When I looked back, we were being followed by a terrifying beast that looked part savage beast, part logical mechion, part furry cute glabderharded.
Yeep.
Called the stranger as we ducked several fireballs, laser bolts, time storms, Maya beasts and flying alien fish.
Don't let the cyber rodent yetis get us, or we'll turn us into one of them.
However, the mechion glabderhardic converts were gaining on us with their squeaky chants of
exterminate.
Well, that didn't quite work.
said my companion as we ran round a corner and ended up hiding behind a boulder.
Maybe I should have just bunged the rocket it instead, or offered it a jelly glabderhardic vegetable baby.
What's going on? I gasped. A minute ago I was leading a nice normal quiet life walking home from work. I listened to how John Smith and the Common Eurasian arts had gone all the way from 20 to 2 in the Intergalactic charts. And suddenly the whole universe seems to have gone mad.
Sorry!
The stranger eeped.
Not the whole universe, though to be honest most of it was quite insane anyway. Or at least it is on Thursdays. Terrible things Thursdays. Just as you think you're getting the hang of the week and are looking forward to the weekend, in they come and turn everything upside down. The good thing about having a time machine though, did I mention I had a time machine by the way, is that you can get to choose what days of the week you land on. Friday afternoons are my speciality. Anyway, we don't have time to discuss dates. The universe has bred the most terrible things that must be fought, you see. That doesn't leave you much time for hellos. Hello, by the way.
Oh, I said. I'm Danilosian, a Camalosian. I'm a long way from Homesian, I added, because I thought her better.
I know.
She eeped.
You said that.
And as a Camalosian, I'm not used to going that fast, I continued. I'm a bit breathless, and more than a little lost. Is it always like this?
Oh, no.
Squeaked the rodent.
Normally it's much more dangerous. Do you think you can get to my spaceship just over there? Well, I call it a spaceship, but at the moment it's disguised as a blue table.
Why is it disguised as a table, I asked.
The Camalosian circuit got stuck.
Squeaked the figure.
You should know all about them, surely, given how you Camalosians can change your skin tone. Maybe you can fix it for me one day. Do you think you can make it over there?
I shall endeavour to maintain a regular speed within certain parameters, I puffed.
That's the ticket.
The stranger squeaked.
Geronimo!
So saying, she ran into the line of fire, holding up a sonic vegetable peeler in her hand as she dodged bullets this way and that, leaving the path clear for me to follow, which I did, as well as I could. In the end, we both managed to hurl ourselves under this magic table and into the opening drawer just in time, as the end of my tail became singed. That explosion was a bit close there, special effects department. To my shock, as we slid across the ground, a door opened up and let us through, and we landed in a crumpled heap on the floor. I would have happily stayed on the floor and had a nap, but already the stranger was on all four paws and giggling.
That was fun!
She said.
I must do it again sometime.
Dazed, I look around in shock. Far from being a tiny drawer, I was in a huge spaceship that appeared to be infinite and unlike any I had ever seen before. The ship was surrounded by blue roundels on every wall, while in the centre a giant column that resembled a hamster wheel moved up and down. A carrot dispenser in the corner suddenly pinged, and the figure picked up a carrot and thoughtlessly grazed it.
Do you want one?
She offered. I wasn't listening though, for that wasn't the biggest surprise. No, that was that, having entered this strange contraption, the underside of the table had suddenly got very large indeed. It's dimensionally transcendent, I said, with an exterior that is notably enhanced compared to the size of the interior.
Need help?
Laughed the stranger. It's my JARDIS.
It stands for Gentleman Ring Donuts in Space.
She thought to herself.
It used to be a delivery van, you see. I was in a regeneration as a Dewsbury Giant when I named it. I keep wanting to change it.
Sensing that I was safe at last, I babbled away to her. What was that thing out there? How did you stop it? How did you get here? How did I get here? Who even are you anyway? She looked me up and down.
To answer your questions out of sequence, doing anything in sequence is boring. I'm a Time Rodent from Glabderfray. That thing out there was a cyber rodent yeti hybrid, made up of 2 or 3 of the most terrifying creatures in the universe. I defeated it by absorbing the neutron relays it fired at me with a dodecahedron beam from my sonic vegetable peeler that reflected all its energy bolts at its own radio signals. Clever, eh? While I was there, well, I was answering a distress call from what I thought was a nice warrior, but he turned out to be an ice warrior. Big mistake, as they're not the same thing at all. He got some friends waiting for me and my friend, but all attacked us, so I had to quickly program the coordinates for a random alternate position in space and time, and then call the jars to lock onto my directions. Only I got the figures slightly wrong as I was in a hurry. I'd only popped out to buy a pint of the argibraffe milk when my ship intercepted that message. As for how you got here, sorry, my bad. I was trying to track my friend across dimensions and actually got his DNA confused with yours instead, so I zapped you by accident. My friend is still there. He's probably very cross with me, if he's still alive. As for how I got here, well, wibbly wobbly, eepy squeaky.
Suddenly a pair of antlers stuck themselves up from under the Jardis floor with an inert alien on his head. "Ah, there you are," the Time Rodent eeped. "So you're safe after all. Well, I knew that. I set the Jardis hostile action displacement system just in case one of us got into trouble." She smiled at me. "This is my friend, Jamie Maggrumphian." "Okay," he answered, a little bit dazed. "Is that you, Victoria? I like the new scales. They suit you." "No, Jamie," heaped the nurse. "Victoria's gone. She got eaten by a seaweed creature because she wouldn't stop screaming. Or was that Bonnie Langford? I forget." Even though I was acting and supposed to be staying in character, I saw Martin, as Jamie, stare out at me with the same gaze I'd felt when we met in person, and shivered. It was so intense, as if he was scanning my entire soul. He smiled the same secret smile he'd given me backstage. Even Jean seemed to notice it, for she eeped in surprise, but gamely carried on with the script. "Jamie's been with me for quite some time. I picked him up when he was an orphan on the planet Dido. Or was it Katie Melua? It was one of those planets named after a 21st century Earth singer anyway." I studied Jamie's kilt, something I was asked to do in the script, but which made me embarrassed now, as I so badly wanted to do it for real. "Aren't your knees cold in that?" I asked. He looked me up and down and flushed his antlers at me. "That's your first question," he harumphed, but with a twinkle in his eye. "You're inside a blue table that's bigger on the inside than the outside, and which can go anywhere in time or space, and that's your first question?" "Sorry," I said. "I'm still suffering underlying anomalous apprehension caused by a sudden implosion of variables in my previously reliable understanding of logic and reason." "Wait, we can go anywhere? In time and space?" "Yes," my new furry friend eeped. "Well, all except 2020 to 2022 and planet Earth. That was such a sad and boring time, I won't go there. First, though, I'd better tidy up a bit." She opened the door. "Ooh, a rocky alien planet. Or is it a quarry? Oh, I remember now. It's the planet we were on before, a planet called Summer." "Why do they call it that?" I asked innocently as she walked out onto the soil of an alien world. "Because it's hot, hot, hot," the bescarfed stranger squeaked, dancing. Wordlessly, Jamie got out a fire extinguisher and squirted it at her tootsies nonchalantly, as if he did this sort of thing all the time. "Ah, that's better," the nurse eeped. "Welcome to another world, boys, where anything can happen, and usually does. Several times before breakfast, in fact." "Wait a minute, though," said Jamie, tugging at my arm. "Why are there so many earthlings everywhere? Is that an abominable snowman on Baloo over there using his phone? And what is that in the sky?" A giant spaceship loomed into view. "Look at the size of that thing," he screamed. The caption credits rolled over the nearby rock. "Next week, the World Wide Web of Fear." "Cut!" the director's voice rang out. "Not bad at all, though I think the Slovene came in shot a bit too early. And why is he wearing slippers? Make up for that human face, please. They look awful." "Oh, are they meant to look like that? I'm sorry, my mistake. Everyone take a break and we'll all meet back on set in 10 rels time." "How are you settling in, Claude? Is everything okay?" June asked me. "Well," I said in the canteen after a heavy first day's filming, "it's been great fun so far. I'm still a little anxious, though, I must admit. There are so many lines to learn, and half of them are gobbledygook. How do you remember them all?" "With great difficulty," my companion eeped with a smile. "It's the running I have more problems with. There's always so much running up and down corridors, and I only have little legs." "How long has this series been running now?" I asked. "It's our 400th anniversary," eeped June, "in some form or another. You're just in time for our anniversary show at the end of the year, with all 118 regenerations coming back for a special set on Earth. It's a special that lasts 3 days to watch all in one go. It all started as a show on Earth, as you probably know, but since then it's become truly intergalactic. The main character regenerates into a new species every few years or so. It's been a big success, particularly on Glabda Hardis. Our youngsters like being scared." I'm surprised, I said. No offence. None taken, smiled June. It's okay, they can hide under a table or watch behind a sofa. I guess it does seem a bit paradoxical, but, well, being scared in a location when you can be safe and have full control, like, say, being able to turn off a holovision or hide behind a table while you watch it, and being menaced by something fictional, well, that's being what we call safe scary. In fact, it's thought to be really good for young Labdahardits as it helps them get used to the idea of being scared in adult life, and it doesn't come as a surprise. There was this Labdahardit called Wary Mighthouse, who tried to take the programme off the air because she thought it was bad for our little ones, but the sight of her talking in her big wigs gave them more nightmares than we ever could, so after being cancelled they put the show back on, thankfully. I like what I've seen of the show, I said. You're all good role models, especially for boys. When you are a boy, I mean, not a girl, though that's good too. Our other male role models are all traditional heroes with superpowers, or bruiser blokes solving stuff while blowing it up. But I like my male heroes to be more sensitive, and I love the way you talk to your aliens first to try to make peace, and how you're not infallible and get things wrong, like all those boring superheroes you know are always going to save the day. It feels as if there's real jeopardy here. And the fact that you're the only hero on the holovision who's a bit of a nerd, like us Camalosians. That's right, June nodding. In my other acting jobs I always felt somehow separate to our audiences, but with this job, whenever I meet a fan, they seem like us, and we seem like them. Give or take my ability to regenerate and travel to different worlds, of course. It's so exciting. I always dreamed of someone I meet in real life who'd act just like that, I said, who'd just grab me by the hand and say, let's go and jump into some new adventure. Just then Martin came up and joined us. I hope I'm doing the show justice, I said. I felt a little nervous back there. Nonsense, scoffed Martin. You're doing fine, you friend of mine. Am I? I asked, desperate for reassurance. I don't feel I've quite got the hang of it yet. A lot of it seems to involve scientific detail while running down corridors, and it's hard to do both at once convincingly. Even separately they're quite a challenge. You were great, mate, said Martin. Don't sweat, pet. Really? Yes, you wouldn't know that you were new to being an actor. That's like not a factor. Martin slipped his arm into mine, getting really close to me, and my heart skipped a beat. Did he know, I thought to myself, my secret? Was this a special sign made to another, to show that he knew, that I knew, that he was one too? Do I dare risk asking him outright, or will that just make me look stupid? How I wish that I could have a gadget, like the ones in the show, that I could use for readings, and they could give me definite answers. Everything on the show was so definitive and clear-cut, whereas in real life it was messy. Love especially. It was a minefield of genders, races and species, some of whom like mixing, and some of whom, like me, just stay with their own kind, and Camalosians were notoriously difficult to read in matters of the heart. I'd been so sure sometimes in the past, been convinced that I'd read all the signals right, only to be embarrassed by being turned down, or worse. Even being an actor, you didn't know, for even though there were a lot of people like us around, you could never be sure who was in character, and who wasn't. Thank you, I stuttered nervously. I'm just trying to follow you two, really. Listen, said Martin, I know it's been a long day, but if you've nothing else happening, maybe I could take you out to eat somewhere. I know a good place. McDonald's. You know the one with golden arches made out of antlers. It's maybe not up to the dooziest caterers, but it has a lot of pencils and porridge and other bland food to eat, just how you Camalosians like it. Oh, I said, my heart now skipping 3 beats. He wants to see me alone. I must be right. I must be. The way he was looking at me was a sign, and the way he had held my arm and made me feel like the only boy in the universe that mattered was a sign, and now he was asking me out, which was a sign. Just me, as if I was special. Yes, please, I said, more nervous than I hoped I sounded. That would be really lovely. Great, said Martin. I can't wait. See you at 8. Me too, Eat Tune. I love those vegetable McNuggets. Oh, I said, crestfallen at the idea that I wouldn't be alone with my new friend after all, but acting hard and trying not to show it. This Maggrumph must do this for all the cast, I thought. He was being friendly, that's all. I felt a little bit sad at that, as if someone had just told me that I wasn't really special, after all. Hey Martin, remember when our faces were all over these boxes? Laughed June from under our table as she grazed off the floor, Labdahardit style. And we heard that little Eurasian asking for a Jamie Maggrumph toy because he got 7 nurses and a sea devil, air-weeping angel hybrid already. The look on his face when you gave him one out of your pocket and signed it for him. I like my fans, man, said Martin, smiling. It's great to bring joy, boy. Every other job makes you sob, but this one, gee, it fills my heart with glee. Talking of which, a little Maggrumph, just in his first growth of antlers, shyly walked up to the table. Play fair, will you sign this? He lisped, holding out a much-chewed pen and a ginormous argibraffe poster of my 2 new friends in costume, leaning with their backs together and smiling for the camera. Is that yours? My Maggrumph companion asked, and the boy nodded. Sir Martin smiled and said his catchphrase, Look at the size of that thing, and scribbled a few words before patting the lad on the head and handing over much of his first course for good measure, for Maggrumps didn't tend to eat much. The lad was thrilled, and I could feel the warm glow from the other side of the table as he left, running round the room at high speed. Oh, that's lovely, I said. Martin's a good role model, explained Jude to me. Maggrumps are meant to be rude and grumpy, but that's just the part he plays on the show because the demographics like it. In real life, he's a softie. I wondered whether someone would look at me with such adoration one day. Suddenly I felt inadequate, sat here amongst 2 established stars, when I had achieved so little. But Martin had noticed and caught my eye. Don't worry, buddy, he said. Your time will come, and yours will be the moniker wanted by every moniker. I'm not sure I'll ever be as popular as both of you, I said. I'm not sure what I can add to this series. Nonsense, scoffed Martin. We need you to say the long lines of technical jargon none of us non-Camalosians can say. Well, Jude is here to do all the dashing and running around, and I'm here to keep the bachelor clandesprods from doing their knitting. We'll make a great team. You wait and see. It always takes a while to settle in. Thank you, I said. I appreciate that. As long as someone needs me, that's all I needed to hear. Someone in particular, I thought. Maybe, I daydreamed, somebody not very far away. Suddenly Martin's hand reached out for a spork, just as mine was reaching out for a porridge spoon, and they touched, just for a moment. I blushed and looked away, but Martin held my gaze for just long enough to show me that he noticed our hands and claws were touching, before letting mine go with a smile. So many secret signals. I still couldn't be sure if I was right, though. What if these signals were all in my head, and we just reached for our cutlery at the same time, quite by accident? How I wish that life was like acting, or I could skip forward in the script a few pages and peek at the ending to work out what was going on and what I was meant to do. Oh, for the luxury of being sure about something, about someone. I would give anything to know. For a sign. Pass the salt, Walt? Asked Martin. I looked confused. I mean the sodium chloride, he said, remembering he was with a Camalosian. He moved his chair just as I was reaching over, and I clumsily knocked the salt over my food. Oops, said Martin. My bad, Brad. I'll order you some more. I know the staff here well. Just come with me, through these doors. We got up, leaving June grazing on her supper, and walked through some shuttered doors, finding ourselves in a corridor some way from the kitchens, near to the rooms marked boy aliens, girl aliens, and gender-neutral aliens. Instead of going near the kitchen, though, Martin pressed me up against the wall. Gently, his antlers leaning over me. I saw your profile, you know, bro. I gulped. Pardon? I asked. On Intergalactic Dating, matey. I know it was you. You were a different shade of green, but then I think that was before the last shedding had been. I know it was you, Claude, unless it was a fraud. No, I said, light suddenly dawning. That was me. I signed up to ID years ago, another lifetime it seemed, when I was still working as an extra, and indeed acting was an extracurricular activity. Dating sites were a struggle for timid Camalosians, though. I didn't remember getting any replies, and people didn't even swipe left on my photo when they didn't like it. They just swiped down instead. I joined up to a few Camalosian dating apps first. Binder was our biggest one. That was the Camalosian dating site, like the Earth apps Tinder or Grindr, only with lots of lovely added paperwork to make it more amenable to the Camalosian thought process. But that hadn't worked out either. Anyway, Camalosians change their outer appearances so often, I had to keep changing my profile as often as I changed my socks, and it became draining. I'd long ago given up the thought of meeting anybody. After all, there were much more handsome Camalosians to meet at home, and intergalactically, who'd want to date an overgrown reptile with green skin that peeled off will make a date a friendly clandesprod, or a cute fury agrosian, or a self-confident Belobrat. with the added DNA lottery of having 3 heads, so odds were one of them must be good, or so it was always thought. I remembered now, though, I'd never closed my ID app, though I hadn't been on it for years, partly because I'd hoped that a day like this would come. I hadn't cancelled my subscription either, now I realised to my horror. How much money had I lost on that thing? I came to from my thoughts to find Martin with his hand round my waist and his antlers wrapped around my head. "Are you still—" he asked me. I breathed in deeply and nodded. "Because people can change," he said. "Regenerate. I even knew a Belobrat whose left head turned out to be heterosexual, his middle head homosexual, and his right head bisexual. But his middle head hadn't bothered to speak to the others when he filled out the form, so he just got counted as all one thing." "No," I said, "I still very much am." Loving the moment, I held out my mouth for a kiss that didn't come. After a while of it still not coming, I opened my eyes again and discovered June staring up at us with her big eyes. "There you are, boys," she smiled. "He didn't seem to be coming back, so I ordered a glab-de-hardy cocktail for all of us, and it's just arrived." "Oh no," groaned Martin, half to himself and half to me as we walked back to our table, with a quick detour where he reordered my food and had it added to his bill. Carrot juice, carrot juice, carrot juice. I make it a policy of mine to never let a glab-de-hardit order drinks. We were in a cave, well, more of a pothole really, on the planet Maggrumph, at the mercy of Vatek, leader of the alien Jord, a Maggrumph who looked to all the world as if she was wearing a scuba diving suit and who had just tripped over her own flippers. We were dressed in our orange spacesuits we always kept for these occasions, the nurse's tail poking through the base of hers, and Martin's antlers poking through the top of his, though we had, as it happened, been separated from him in the previous scene. "And now for part 2 of my evil plan," Vatek continued. "I'm not just going to destroy you, rodent of time, I'm going to destroy your reputation. Instead of me going out and searching for the lettuce leaves of time and the carrots of destiny that have been splintered across multiple time streams myself, I'm going to send you out after it, making sure that you are seen by the whole universe, destroying everyone in your path to get it. Soon your name will become synonymous with evil, and instead of coming to you for help, the universe will shy away from you in terror." The nurse was unfussed. "Hypnotism doesn't work on me," she eeped. "Better dressed aliens than you have tried." "Oh," said Vatek, "that's not quite what I had in mind. Look." And she made a special sign with her antlers that caused a door in the side of the cave to swing open, and an exact android double of the nurse walked out. "Yeep," said the nurse in surprise, in her usual high-pitched squeak. "You're my exact double in every way, except in some long shots when one of us has our back to the camera." "Yeep," said the android in a really deep electronic growl. "Kindly do not throw paws at me. Has anyone got a sandwich for not using?" "Wait," I said, "how come this android's resonances are so dissimilar compared to yours?" "We got the parts cheap from a Dewsbury giant," said Vatek. "Anyway, the robot doesn't need to speak at all. People will be too busy running away from you to care what you sound like. And besides, most of the universe has only heard about you, doesn't actually know what you sound like anyway." "You'll never get away with this," said the nurse. "The universe have heard stories about me, legends. They'll have heard tales of how I help people out. They'll know that thing isn't me. They'll see right through you." "But that's not true," said Vatek in response. "The universe also knows how many secrets you keep, you and your companions. Neither of them are quite what they seem, are they?" There was an inserted flashback here, which we watched on a studio monitor. This season-long arc that Camalosian was a secret lost prince whose great-uncle was once part of a great tribe of wizard lizards that had helped invent time travel, while Jamie had been linked to the prophecy of a phantom Highland piper who appeared in the universe's time of need and whose death would foreshadow an apocalyptic time of great sorrow. You wonder about them, don't you? About what secrets they are keeping behind your back. About who they really are. "I know who they are," eeped the nurse bravely. "They are both great men who do great things in the present. Who cares what happened in their past or futures?" "Well," said Vatek, "I've had a nice chat and a good catch-up, but I really must be going now. I need to gloat to my arch-rival Habridats that I finally caught you and he didn't. I'm going to set this laser to stun and walk away, though I'm going to leave my holo recorder on so that I can watch it later on my holovision viewer and see you scream, while all the time your android replica ruins your good name." She turned to the android. "Now did you get those instructions?" At this the robot woke up and eeped. Yes, infiltrate and kill. I mean, honestly, me with my brain the size of a planet, it's not rocket science, is it? It's not even rocket salad. Yum. Yartek sighed. That's the last time I buy spare parts from the Dewsbury mad scientists. The nurse was in fine fighting form. Truth be told, June was going a little OTT in this scene. Fiend, she squeaked. You'll never get away with this. Besides, no one could possibly be fooled by that robot. She's nothing like me. Just then Jamie walked into the cave, nonchalantly holding a Maggrumph disintegrator gun. Though we generally didn't carry weapons around with us, this one was different. It didn't disintegrate people, it disintegrated antlers. Bartek, surprised and unbalanced, tripped over her own flippers and knocked herself out against her own android, desperately pulling away at the face to reveal a whole load of beeping, eeping circuitry beneath the skin. Oh, hello, nurse, Jamie said to the robot. Have you done something to your hair? No, you clodpole, squeaked the nurse. Over here, the one tied up. Jamie thought to himself for a moment. How do I know it's really you, and not an android replica? The Time Rodent was irate. Because I'm going to kill you if you don't let me out of here and let me die instead. That certainly sounds like you, said Jamie thoughtfully, and turned knowingly to the camera. It's good that we don't have any secrets from each other. At this the nurse and I glanced at each other guiltily, for we knew that he too was an android double that had been created by this mad professor, but had been reanimated due to a hole in time, and created by chance when a falling leaf led to his parents meeting each other over a time rift, that meant he should never have been born, and that soon he would just fade away. Jamie didn't look as if he didn't belong in our time now, though. Instead he looked so alive, and was holding the android double down with his thick, strong arms, while pressing buttons wildly. He confessed, I'm a bit stuck. I want to untie you, but I daren't move, and I also don't know how to work this thing. Quick, I yelled, struggling to get a claw free. Chuck us the instruction booklet that's in the android's pocket. The nurse looked surprised. I didn't know you were good with robots, she yipped, and you're always saying how useless you feel. Oh, I am, I said, speed reading, but one thing a Camalosian knows how to do is read instruction booklets very, very fast. Aha! Press DW60, hold on to the vortex manipulator circuits in an anti-clockwise direction, then traverse the polarity of the power resistor circuits into a velocity integrator feedback loop, I called out to Jamie. You what? Said the Maggrumph. Press the big button and turn left, I yelled. Martin did, and this made the android roar. You blithering idiot, cried Jamie. You've made it worse. No, I haven't, I replied. Duck. And the android aimed a series of firebolts at the shells behind Martin, causing them to collapse right on top of the android as our friend ran out of danger. Yippee! Heaped the nurse. What teamwork! So that's why I brought you both along. I wonder why people kept saying I always needed somebody. Jamie untied her. Ooh, she said, looking over at the android. Is that what the back of my head looks like? It's all furry. Thank you, said Jamie to me. No, I said to him. Thank you. Then I ad-libbed. You know, I would go through all of time and space to save you, just to spend an extra second with you. Of all the beings in the universe, you're the one that's most worth it. Martin, as Jamie, smiled at me. As I would for you, Emu. Secrets, said our producer, a Belobrat in a free-necked Hawaiian shirt, throwing down a newspaper at me and Martin. You're not allowed secrets on this show. They tried that once in the 21st century when nobody was allowed to say anything about anything to anyone, and it drove the fan base balmy. Besides all the things you've been adding to the scripts lately, all those ad-libs, people have been talking. We looked at the paper guiltily. There it was in black and white. Someone had seen us getting, frisky at McDonald's, though the photograph itself was incredibly blurred and could have been of anything. Let them talk, I said breezily. Love is good for any programme, never mind one about changing attitudes. And besides, Camalosians are always honest. But my companion, usually so much more assertive and confident than me, suddenly seemed less sure. Martin coughed awkwardly in the background and finally spoke up. I don't mind them talking about us here, but is it possible to stop them talking at home? I have families who read those papers. It makes me uncomfortable to be in them. I looked at him sadly and felt oddly hurt, as if I'd been rejected, when I knew that I hadn't. Not really. What Martin was saying was practical, and I didn't want to get my loved one into trouble or make him unhappy. It shook me, though. This wasn't the confident, brash young lover I'd fallen for. What had happened to him? They're not going to talk about you anywhere. I'll see to that. You two represent the programme, carried on the Belobrat, and you have a duty of care, much like little characters do, not to get up to any mischief. It isn't mischief, I exploded. It's love, exactly the same as when love is between species of different genders. Why do other people always have to treat it as if it's something sneaky or shameful? Anyway, I finished rather lamely, aware that the Belobrat was staring at me with all 6 eyes now. We didn't get up to very much, just a quick kiss. Mostly because we didn't get the chance, added Martin, and got glared at with all 6 eyes. We are not going to get up to anything else, said the producer. We cannot have any controversy on a family show. No, I said brightly. A family show is exactly where these discussions need to take place, so love between 2 people, any people, can be seen as something normal for youngsters to understand and accept before they grow up and get taught all the wrong prejudices. The producer carried on. Look, you're both popular with our fan base, and to be honest, that shot could be of anything. So we've managed to get the newspapers to accept that all you were doing was practicing for a future episode where you get possessed by something called an intergalactic kissing virus and print an apology. Our writers are hastily working on it now. It's a new story titled The Lips of Evil. Really? Asked Martin. Really. It's a mutant space plague virus released into the atmosphere by a mad scientist who was trying to make Queen Elizabeth IV fall in love with him, but who ends up falling in love with a mentor slug from Forest Beta instead. Our fan base is smart though. They'll soon put 2 and 2 together if you carry on like this, and especially if you keep adding lines. That's banned from now on. I can still have you written out. Remember, nobody is indispensable to this programme. Well, only me. I'm special. So saying, the producer flounced out the room. Whoops, I said. I guess we'd better be far more discreet from now on, or we'll end up snogging half the cast in penance. But Martin wasn't smiling. It's not fair, he said. We spend our working life breaking the boundaries of what's allowed, promoting a universe that's free and open-minded and just wants people to be happy, while in our private lives we have to keep everything to ourselves in case it upsets someone. I really wish the universe would regenerate at the same pace as our programme sometimes. It's the longest sentence I'd heard him say, and it didn't even rhyme, something which I'd learnt to be nervous of. This has really got to you, hasn't it? I said. Don't worry, Martin. There's no harm done. We'll go slow. I'm tired of going slow, harumphed Martin. I've waited all my life to share my heart with someone, and maybe even more, but there's always been someone watching over me, telling me not to. I didn't fully understand. Though I was shy of expressing my feelings to anyone, that was just me. The rest of Camalosia was fully accepting of any match made between genders, and it had been like that for so many generations nobody thought it strange anymore. But Maggrumph was a little more backward than Camalosia, I knew. It's all right, I said, putting my claw on Martin's arm. We can still be together. It's what I think of you and what you think of me that matters. Nobody else's opinion does. We'll just be more careful and make sure that nobody else sees us. But I want people to see us, he said. I want to show you off. I want to shout to the universe that I am yours and you are mine, to tell it about something that matters greatly to me, without having to censor myself because it might upset someone, because not telling anyone upsets me. I didn't quite know what else to say, so instead we just sat there in silence, a look of longing between us going unsaid, just in case someone walked in and stopped us. There we were on Glabdifrey, surrounded by the nurse's own people, lots of furry little Time Rodents in turned-up collars standing around looking important. We didn't get many visitors on this orange planet, so our arrival had caused quite a stir. How come they all look like you? I asked the nurse. She whispered back.
Every few millennia, Glabdifrey changes species. It's a quirk of time, a side effect from living so long and having so many regenerations. Kind of like when a planet's poles suddenly switch over, but this happens in time and biology too. At first my people resembled humans, but so far we've regenerated into 8 different species. All of us change at once, without warning when our time is up, so we have to be careful where we are, or we might get stuck if we suddenly turn into a gooseberry giant halfway down a ventilation shaft.
Suddenly one of the beings came forward and bowed, his white fur glinting in the breeze.
So, we meet again.
Razipalon said grandly.
How many regenerations are you on now? 118!
Squeaked the nurse.
You are still so young, my pupil.
He grinned.
I'm on my 704th, and your friends are even younger. So, what seems to be the trouble?
Asked the nurse.
It's the Eeping Angels,
said Razipalon.
Intergalactic intergalactic gargoyles. They've put Glabdifray on a hyperstitial time lock and surrounded us, so now, whenever anyone looks away, they can devour you and send you back in time to a random planet at a time before the Mechion translator circuits came online. So no one will be able to understand anything we say, and we all wind up being kept as pets, going round and round on wheels all day and eating lettuce.
That sounds quite nice, Jamie interjected, but the nurse was horrified.
Confined to one time and place?
She squeaked.
Oh, my furry whiskers! We can't have that. What should we do? That's rather up to you, isn't it?
Asked Rasipalon.
I mean, you always used to be so good at sorting out that sort of thing. That's why we summoned you back here.
Suddenly there was a wild commotion of squeaking that broke out in the quadrangle.
Oh no!
Cried the elder Time Rodent.
The invasion! It's here at last!
And an angel arrived, all scowling, terrifying face and stone expression, and it touched the nurse on her back. Our friend cried as she disappeared into nothingness, seemingly forever. Jamie and I rushed over, as out of nowhere we heard the sting of the cliffhanger music. Oh no, I cried. What an incredibly unfortunate and catastrophic eventuality. Whatever should we do for assistance?
Exactly.
Leaped Rasipalon.
Help!
Throughout our conversation, though, Jamie had been staring at the stone figure.
I think it's stuck, Chuck.
He said to me.
The more I stare, the less it's aware.
That's brilliant, I said, slapping him on the back. Just keep staring while I do something clever. I picked up the nurse's sonic vegetable peeler that had been left on the floor when she vanished, and pressed a few settings.
What are you doing?
Called Jamie. I'm hot-binding the fragment links and superseding the binary code of the inductors until it causes a macro-transmission wavelength in a self-replicating energy blindfold using the psychokinetic threshold manipulators, I said. Oh, said Jamie. I thought you were. Called the nurse's voice from out of the vegetable peeler.
Is that you, faithful companions? I'm being held prisoner in some sort of cage. I think I'm in a New York University dorm in the 1980s. My owner keeps calling me by a new name they've invented for me. Cat Siegfried Von Hamster. It's all very scary and overwhelming, and I'm doing everything I can to escape, but... Ooh, letters. More please, human. Don't mind if I do.
But all we could hear was the constant sound of crunching. But what can we do? I called in despair. Without you we are just an ordinary Camalosian Maggrumph. It's you that's special.
Nonsense!
Yeeked the nurse.
Everybody's special. One of the students in this form is studying engineering, and another astrophysics, so all I have to do is read up about Earth's technology in this time period, and then build something clever using cutlery, cut up newspaper, and some tap water. Oh wait, someone's picking me up. Unhand me, madam. Yes, you're right, I'm very squeaky today. No, I do not want to bath. And no, I would not like to wear a hat. Oh, all right then, it's rather fetching actually. Anyway, get into the matrix if you can. I think that's where the Yeeping Angels are hiding. Over and out. Yeep.
What's the matrix? I asked Rasipalon.
It's the source of all our Time Rodent knowledge, passed on across millennia through the Malaysian arts.
He said.
It's a little like the internet, or the universal, but a lot more surreal. It exists in your deepened consciousness, you see.
Can I enter it? I asked.
Sure.
He said, getting something out of his pocket.
I have the odd socks of Rasipalon right here. Like all things that once belonged to my originator, this will help you enter the matrix. Beware though, strange things happen in there. Good luck, and watch out for clowns.
And there I was suddenly, lying on a train track with my tail caught beneath the wood, while a strange-looking rodent clown rode a galumphary straight at me. I thought I was done for as the strange cackling figure tried to run me over, but just as he was about to get me, I felt Jamie's big safe arms pulling me to safety. Thank you, I said breathlessly. Going off script, stuff the producer, I added, you always save me, usually just when I'm giving up hope. Whatever would I do without you? Martin, as Jamie smiled. Then a thought crossed my mind. Half a mo, shouldn't you be staring at those things out there?
Oh, that,
said Jamie.
somebody else can deal with that. It's only the planets of the oldest species and the greatest learning ever known anyway. It wasn't my Camalosian. You're much more important.
Feeling bold, we both leaned in for a kiss that most definitely wasn't in the script. We knew they would probably take it out in the editing, but we didn't care. Slowly though, I realised that we were being surrounded by lots of these stone figures. Jamie, I added. That's all right, said Martin. Reverse the polarity of the neutron flow with the doctor's solid vegetable peeler. So now they can only cause damage if you look at them, not if you look away. And I only have eyes for you. I still don't know how to keep them away from us though. They all followed me in earlier. Just then the nurse materialised around us.
Hello, chaps,
She said.
am I interrupting something? No, I'm going to solve a day very cleverly using a teaspoon of tomato and a hamster wheel. Oh, and a hacksaw.
As the Eeping Angel stared at us, out of the corner of our eyes we could see her running around and madly taking their heads off. Martin and I were tucked up in bed. My bed. We had decided between us that as long as we were discreet and weren't caught, then we would still be able to spend quality time together, and this was quality indeed. Martin had told everyone he wanted to learn lines with me, but I think everyone knew we were lying.
It's only half a lie,
He admitted.
I've been learning the script all day, but with this script you don't need to say anything. Pen,
He said, reaching out to hold my claw.
anyone who knows me knows I don't usually do poetry, and I know you're only looking, but I really like you, so let's have looking. Talk Camalosian, will you sleep with me?
You bet, I said, as briefly as any Maggrumph in my haste, putting my claws around his neck and pulling him tight. At last, after all my years of searching, this was finally it, true happiness. And I knew that even if I was offered the chance to go anywhere in time and space, I would always come back here and remember when I was loved, when our minds and bodies became one. If this was a different sort of book, I might make a joke about something being bigger on the inside too. But it isn't. So I went. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw a flash, but I wasn't really paying much attention. I thought I heard the door shut too. I wasn't certain though. After all, I had too much to think about right now to care about the future or worry about the past. I didn't want to time travel. I wanted to stay in this here and now for as long as it would have me. It was our Christmas special, which for some reason known mostly to the people who set the budget, was being filmed in a hot and sunny July, and we were spending it on the planet Summer again, and cooking under the studio lights as we tried to prevent a dictator named Scrooge Maggrumph from ejecting a group of orphans from the planet Orphenius into the sun, so he could build a hyperspace bypass on the land instead. We had just evaded a bunch of robot Christmas crackers that had just come to life, and were running down a corridor festooned with Christmas decorations, when the nurse decided we should have a Christmas lunch together.
Incidentally, I'm very needless to those of you at home.
She said, raising her glass to the camera. Who are you talking to? I said. The nurse seeped.
I figure there are so many space-time visualizers out there, somebody's bound to have one trained on us right now, and it seemed like the right thing to say in the moment. Anyway, you lot watching, you are all our family, whatever species you are, or what regeneration you are in right now, and you are all welcome and included, regardless of species, gender, race or age. Merry Christmas!
Together we all lifted our glasses towards the supposedly non-existent cameras.
Oops! Yep!
Merry Yeetmas! It was a heartwarming moment. Just for a second I felt us uniting everyone from around the universe in a sudden warm glow of togetherness and camaraderie that nothing could break. Forgetting all the nonsense that had been printed in the newspapers, I glanced at Martin and saw him smiling back at me. This felt good. This felt right. This felt like the future. Suddenly a red laser-nosed reindeer came round the corner and started shooting at us. Cried the nurse, dodging gunfire this way and that.
No wonder Rudolph never had any friends to play with. That deer has gone rogue.
Behind her I managed to drag Jamie into cover behind a particularly festive-looking snow globe.
Well, who knows how to get us out of this one then? I saved us all last time, so what else should have a go?
Baubles, I said.
I wish
Nodded Jamie. No, I said, if we can reverse the polarity of the neutron flow, and you can create a temporal time loop with your sonic vegetable peeler using an internalized synchronous feedback reversal loop, then we can knock the reindeer out with those tree declarations, confuse its directional circuits with a burst of interstitial nexus feedback from the dimensional matrices, using the dimensional osmosis dampener settings, and then switch that rogue reindeer over with a plastic robin that's in the snow globe, trapping it inside for eternity.
That's brilliant!
Eat the nurse.
You two are the best companions ever!
And even though I was only saying scripted lines, I felt a shiver go down my spine. Someone actually wanted me and liked my company. I belong somewhere. Martin is the best, I mumbled shyly, going off script. Well, Martin came up and hugged me. Grinning more than usual, I cheered the nurse on as she aimed her sonic vegetable peeler at a giant mutant deer. There was a flash of lights, and then suddenly the reindeer had shrunk, trapped forever in the snow globe.
Perfect!
Yelled the nurse.
You're so glad!
And behind us there was a roaring noise. And a giant version of a robin that had looked quite sweet in the snow globe was suddenly behind us, flying straight for us.
I take it back!
Keep the nurse.
You're both a pair of imbeciles! What's thinking this was any better?
We ran off, yelling and screaming out of shot, only we got the giggles as we did so, and after tripping up fell onto the floor.
Hard!
Screamed the director, but we were laughing too hard to hear him, getting more and more hysterical with every passing second. This, I thought to myself, was such good fun, and I never wanted it to end. It was, in fact, where I wanted to be most in the universe right now, in all of time and space. Oh, I'm loving this, I said, as my fan mail arrived backstage. I was having great fun writing long letters to all my fans, despite my co-stars' protests that I couldn't possibly be able to keep up. You just watch me, I said, laughing, as I wrote 4 letters simultaneously with all 4 limbs.
Wow!
Said June, impressed.
I wish I could do that.
Oh, Claude is very flexible.
Grinned Martin.
I thought about last night.
June looked at us shyly.
You're not!
Sheeped,
We are.
said Martin proudly.
You didn't!
Sheeped. We did, I said,
Twice.
added Martin.
You mean you two played Intergalactic Twister last night and didn't ask me?
Heaped June.
What kind of co-stars are you? I love that game!
She looked up at our confused faces.
Oh,
She said,
wait, you mean you're a lighter?
I'm Martin.
joked Martin.
He's luggage.
I don't think I'd ever seen him this happy. Come to think of it, I had never been this happy. I felt a warm glow of happiness that stretched right down to my tail, as all our possible many futures stretched out before us, blinking with possibilities like the stars outside the window. June laughed.
Well, that's fabulous. I'm so pleased for you both. Don't forget to invite me to the wedding.
Martin and I looked at each other. We'd like to, I said, but sadly that's not practical just yet. You know how Maggrumph is, and how people would talk. It's even more backward than Earth.
Oh, yes.
You, June.
Cocooned out here in space and time. You rather forget. Sorry.
But you will be our best rodent if we ever did have one, I added.
Well,
Added June.
whatever you call it on the outside, within these walls inside you're a couple. This calls for a toast, guys. Here's to you.
And we clinked our glasses loudly. Again.
Wait,
Said our new director, a Dewsbury giant.
did somebody say toast?
Of the Time Rodent.
Don't use your head, Henry!
We were sitting under the table of Earth King Henry VIII, while he searched up and down the tables for us, his big legs waddling from side to side. I'll find you, nurse, and your 2 companions, he roared, and I'll have your heads for this. So saying, he reached out under the table to grab at us, but we were too quick.
We're neck and neck,
The nurse as she dodged his arms. I'll get you yet, growled the king as he turned over the table in anger. Though by that time we were already on the other side of the room.
Stop protesting, Protestant!
Clasped the glad to heart it.
Oh wait, I forgot. You're still Catholic in this era, aren't you?
This is fun, I said in character. But won't we change history just by being here?
Not if one of my future selves remembers to put it right again.
Explained the nurse.
Or one of my earlier selves too, I guess. I'm not sure how that works. Maybe whichever of us changes
We passed a girl with a ruff on the stairs,
Anne
said the Time Rodent with a shudder.
such a sad life, poor thing. Married to that. He should have lost his head, not her.
In the distance we could hear the sounds of the king comfort eating chicken drumsticks.
I really think we should have thought things through before we gave him our bucket of chicken, you know.
Scoffed Jamie Maggrumph.
I mean, happy to explain what Kentucky was to someone in the 16th century. Columbus had only discovered America and potatoes 30 years earlier, and here you are giving him a bucket of the stuff.
He won't mind.
Heaped the nurse.
I've been to see him a few times now in different regenerations, and he never remembers me or what I did for him.
She paused to think.
Oh, except that once when I played in Greensleeves, he adopted that tune as one of his own. I'm pretty sure he got the idea of lawn tennis from me as well.
I'm so glad life isn't like that anymore, but we are free to be ourselves, I said in character, though I was staring hard at Martin when I said it. We've come a long way in a millennia, the Earth especially. Now we are all equal, without stigma or prejudice for the way we look or what we do in our private lives. I paused for breath. Mostly,
Time to do something about that mostly part.
eat the Time Rodent, staring straight to the camera.
Quick, back to the future. Or at any rate, the present.
Oh, I love this show, I said back in my dressing room, with Martin as my guest. It's so liberal, it's liberating. We get to lecture racists and narrow-minded bigots in the past, shine a mirror on the faults in our society in the present, and get to imagine possible peaceful utopias in the future that bring us all hope that things will be better after all.
Nearly, Davy.
Martin raised the collar of his jacket and showed me a jagged line that ran across his neck.
I got this cow last week in the bar when I went back home to the Grofers for a holiday. Someone there didn't like the way I spoke. He threatened to beat me up. I thought it was a joke. It wasn't so funny. But he was done, he stole my money. All because I was gay. I live how I want to live, and let other people live how they want to live. And neither of us should have any extra sorrow.
I'm so sorry, I said, shocked. I didn't think life was like that anymore for us. Martin looked at me sadly.
Maybe not for Camalosian. You're all too nice. But on the Grofers, there is still far too much prejudice.
It's not like that anymore, though, surely, I said, waving my claws around. I mean, we live in a universe with 11 separate species, 12 if you count the argibraffes. We can travel practically anywhere. Between us, we've solved every problem of health or wealth. We haven't had a war on any of our planets since the humans had World War III 5 centuries ago. We've learned how to live together fairly, to accept people how they are, changed, moved on, regenerated. Every generation gets the era of the show they deserve. They need to see themselves in us. And if we fail to reflect that to them, then we shouldn't be on the air. Martin looked at me sadly.
There will always be those who won't adapt, who see something and don't understand, and their first thought is to attack. That's just the way things will always be. I don't know if we can ever be free. Even in my present I sometimes struggle to cope. As to the future, well, I do have hope. But sometimes I get the notion that all I'm doing here is a drop in the ocean. The good people already watch this show and believe. The bad people, though, they will never conceive. They don't want to see through others' eyes. They would rather stay in ignorance, believing in lies.
Suddenly Martin, big, strong, butch Martin, crumpled up in a heap of near tears and gasp-sobbed, so I took him in my arms and held him. I won't let anyone hurt you, I cooed. Not ever again. You're safe now. But how could I keep my promise? I didn't have a machine capable of travelling in time and space. I couldn't take us to better times. I couldn't tackle every single baddie the universe had to offer. I had no sonic vegetable peeler to put things right. I had no giant reset button I could push to make everything better. I wasn't a magical, magnificent being with multiple lifespans who spent his or her days making the world better. I was just an actor, saying lines that had been written for me by somebody else. Suddenly I felt really inadequate. If a nurse was here, I thought, she'd know what to say. But there was only me, and I knew I wasn't enough to keep the whole universe at bay. We were on Earth, in the autumn.
The base is under siege and it's underwater.
peeped the nurse as Jamie and I, in character, stood behind her, looking as thoughtful as we dared, as we gazed out to sea. "What are they?" I asked, as Camalosian.
Submarine cyber
Exclaimed the Glabdahardit, and we looked as these quadzillions of his swimming figures stealthily and metronomically swimming their way towards us. They looked unstoppable. "Are they the beings behind this war?" I asked. "Ruthless, deadly, wanting everyone to think exactly the same as they do, because other people's differences make them afraid," said the nurse in affirmation. "Are they creatures who've locked the humans and the Rationites into an endless futile war for their own illicit ends?" I asked. Agreed the nurse. "But really they want to take over both planets, drill out their cores and fill them with engines to pilot them around space." Agreed the nurse. "Really? It seems like a lot of bother." "But what are we waiting to do?" asked Jamie. "Let's go get them! Yahoo!" So saying, he picked up a giant molecular disintegrator ray gun and aimed it at the door.
No,
Explained the nurse.
we don't do things that way. We must use our natural charm, charisma and patience.
She turned to the Maggrumph.
Which means locking you in the Jarvis, just for now.
Leaving our protesting colleague, the nurse walked up to an elderly-looking human grandma who must have been multiple centuries old and who, although as a leading comedian was unlikely casting for a tough guy role, was clearly in command.
"Now look here,"
She, holding the lapels on her coat grandly.
"I take it you're in charge, Well, a lot of innocent people are going to get hurt unless you listen to this. You're pointing your weapons at the wrong people, and unless we work together to restore peace, we will be in a perpetual war that you can never win, and you can't war back, can you,
The base leader pulled a gun on us. "How do you know we don't want war?" she said, her hands on her hips. "Those warring Mauritian arts have mocked us for the last time. Now if we could all just get on as friends," I said feebly as I walked forward. Instantly lots of weapons were trained on the two of us.
Not so fast,"
said the nurse, talking very quickly and flashing her Spikex stationery set in their faces.
"As you can see, this letter of authorization giving me total authority has been signed by units, the Yonder Ordered Universe's nice intergalactic task force. Oh, and it's been signed by our leader, the Fat Controller. Used by Thomas the Tank Engine stamp too. Nice touch, subconscious. Well, who's going to turn down that then, eh? Well, answer me."
But nobody put their guns down. "I don't think they're listening to us, nurse. Indeed, I would say their prevarication is an answer all in itself," I said.
"Nonsense.
"See the nurse.
Now tell me about the signals you've been listening to. I might be able to help. I'm very good with a bandage, a cup of tea and some sympathy. And even if I can't do anything, I know where to buy the best sympathy cards in the universe. Mostly from a little shop in hospitals. I like little shops."
The boss nodded, and a number of odd beeping noises were broadcast through the base's tannoy system. "You see," said the commander, "do you hear those Mauritians mocking us? That's clearly the sound of evil laughter over their fiendish plan,"
"Oh, I don't think so.
said the nurse.
That's just their grasshopper legs sliding back and forth to make noise."
The commander scoffed. "We know what noise our enemy makes,"
Not anymore.
exclaimed the nurse.
You see, last episode we were over on their side of the base, and they were complaining that the humans had turned the heat down and made them all cold on purpose, so to make them feel better, I gave them all some trousers to wear, and told them they were gifts from Europe. Only I've forgotten that Mauritians make that crickety noise sometimes, and haven't stopped to think what I might sound like in trousers. So you see, it's all just been miscommunication, a giant misunderstanding.
"Enough of this nonsense," said the commander. "Lock them up." Protesting, the nurse was dragged off, but as she went, she suddenly chopped a solid vegetable peeler over to me and yelled,
"Run, Camalosian! The safety of the universe is in your hands! Claws!"
Quickly shedding my top layer of skin so that the guards holding me couldn't stop me, I slid through the nearest ventilation shaft at high speed. "I shall endeavour to ascertain my highest standards," I cried. The ducting was on the side of the base, and kept being pounded as I walked. Going through the portholes. "Nice close at work there, cameraman." I looked out and saw hundreds of cyber rodents climbing out of the ocean, wearing some unlikely-looking string vests that in the script might have come from nets carelessly thrown into the sea, but which I knew from backstage was actually because the cyber rodents looked a little odd naked. They kept throwing themselves at the base's thin walls, trying to get in as I dodged them this way and that, avoiding arms, legs and heads that broke through and allowed a constant drizzle of water inside. Working my way around the ducting as quickly as I could, I walk my way right around the base until I'm standing right outside the intergalactic table. My heart pounding, I gently knock on the door and call, "Jamie, I need you. We all need you. We have to save the universe, and you're the only one who can help me." It was meant to be a short filler line, the sort of thing that you can read in the script and don't think twice about, there to help expand or explain the plot. But suddenly those lines caught in my throat as I thought about their meaning. Yes, I really did need him. We all needed him. Though Martin would never admit it, he was the heart, soul and antlers of this show. I didn't see how it could work without him. I felt the camera come in for a close-up as I blinked my emotion away, wondering if the real sadness I felt in my heart right then had been picked up on camera. Finally, Jamie opened the door and was stood there with his giant gun.
Come on, Camalosian,
he smiled. That secret smile he kept just for me.
We've got the universe to save.
Together we walked back into the base, where the commander had her feet up. "Who are you?" she asked.
You get,
explained Martin as Jamie.
beyond an ordered universe's grumpy intergalactic task force. We demand peace. Oh, we're going to get it, even if we have to use force.
Suddenly there was a roaring sound. "Oh no," I said, turning round. "A Mriaka! What do we do?" "Chap that looks like a pantomime horse," said the unit brigadier. "3 rounds rapid." But the beast kicked the gun away from Jamie's hands. "Oh no," I said again, clutching at Jamie's shoulders. A bit tighter than I was probably meant to, but I was enjoying myself. I could always argue in the edit later, but I was doing it to make sure we kept the shot tight, with less distractions from scenery behind.
"Oh, you are think we can do,"
said Jamie grumpily, aiming a kung fu kick at the giant beast as it roared at us, lumbering slowly.
He's collapsed.
Eat the nurse.
What have I told you about wearing deodorant?
What a great show I was infusing backstage. I mean, the monster was a bit pantomime argibraffe, but I always say if you're looking for good effects rather than strong storytelling or characters, you're watching the wrong show. We got everything else right though, pow! Even Martin looked less down in the dumps than usual for a Maggrumph, while June was positively beaming from furry ear to furry ear.
You took the TV charts too,
She declared.
We have the 2,709,654th Ice Watch program in the universe last night. Anywhere at the top billion is huge for us. The first million places are always Belobrat soap operas or international games of foosball.
But then the producer walked in, clutching something that made my heart stop. It was a picture of us from the front of the paper. Only, once the producer spread everything out on the table, it appeared that we were in all the papers.
What goes on behind locked doors? A scandal at the heart of a family show.
Read the Malaysian art mirror.
Yuck. 2 ugly-looking aliens get it together. See our Belobrat restaged version of what we might have been up to inside.
Ran the Belobrat bugle.
This sort of thing makes me angry.
Claimed the Agrosian ankle.
The first lies on set.
Ran the Glabdahardic Gazette.
Someone famous was seen with someone else famous. Read another paper for more. We can't be bothered to research it,
said the Habridats Telegraph.
Should our favourite actors all be replaced by robots to be on the safe side?
Thundered the Mekion Monthly. Our children shouldn't be watching this filth, exclaimed Earth's Daily Fail.
Who was eating who? Universal exclusive.
Ran the Daily Dewsbury. They're quite sweet and good luck to them, said the Clandesprog Chronicle. What will this do to house prices? Thundered the Earth's Daily Fail again.
We're not angry,
ran the Maggrumph Times over a picture of Martin and me in bed together.
just very, very disappointed.
But we were discreet, I cried. What we get up to in the privacy of our hotel rooms is nobody's business but our own. That's just not fair. For once our Belobrat producer was sympathetic.
I'm sorry,
He said.
We thought we had better security than this, but apparently someone bribed the guards and were let in. We believe the guards were Dewsbury Giants, paid off in giant bagels.
What happens now? I asked, fearing for my job. The producer thought for a minute, then said,
Stuff them! Stuff the lot! They've no right printing this tittle-tattle anyway. We've always talked about being progressive. Well, let's show them we're the most progressive programme there's ever been, and make you an actual couple on the show.
If we can make people believe in something fictional like alien beings, then surely we can make the audience believe in something real like you two. Why, you could be the first gay couple to be married in the series. Fans of the show will talk about my reign in charge for millennia, about how I was the kind, noble, progressive producer who made everything come right. Everyone will talk about how brilliant I am, and my memoirs will sell like hotcakes on dooziers.
He turned to us with less of a gleam in his eyes this time.
Plus, it's the right thing to do. I do care about keeping my team happy.
I smile. So we're all right after all. We can keep our jobs. The producer nodded. Yahoo! I cried, shaking him by the hand. I will be perpetually indebted and gratified by your elaborate moment of kindness and understanding. I will endeavour to prove that your assumption about the manner with which we conduct ourselves will be returned successfully, I said. Only then did I realise that Martin wasn't cheering with me. Are you all right? I asked. Why so glum, chum?
It's a lie,
he said. What is? I asked.
This,
he said, gesturing at the producer.
it will be an act for the cameras.
But you're an actor,
said the producer.
You're used to acting.
Not this.
Martin said slowly, as if chewing his words over.
I won't know forevermore what your real feelings for me are, or whether you're just being in character. I won't be able to trust what happens between us. You can't serve someone you love them by reading a lot of pre-rehearsed words written by other people.
So we'll be a couple offset as well, I said, drawing up short when I saw the look on his face. Or don't you want that anymore?
I don't know,
said Martin.
because how do I know when you're acting or not? You do it so well. And my private life is the one place I want to be real. I'm not sure I can do this forever.
Won't you stay, I said, till we get this sorted out, please? Just then we were called on set, my question still unanswered, hanging ominously in the air.
We're at the very centre of the universe!
Eeped the nurse. You mean the causal temporal nexus point at the epicentre of the creation of all time and space? I asked breathlessly.
Yes!
The nurse eeped.
Isn't it exciting?
No,
Said Jamie.
anyway, it's stupid. How can we be at the centre of a universe that's always expanding and contracting? You'd have to keep reworking out the parameters.
This wasn't in the script. The director called cut and walked over to us. We started again, with a modified script.
We're at the very depth of the universe!
Eeped the nurse.
No one has ever been all the way down here before.
No, said Jamie. That's even stupider. Down through where?
The director called cut, and we tried a third time.
We're at the top right-hand corner and down a bit of the universe!
Eeped the nurse, and she glanced back at Jamie.
Better?
Not really,
He said.
but let's get on with it.
Is everything all right? I asked anxiously, my voice lowered. Martin, as Jamie, laughed.
I meet the love of my life, but I can't be seen talking to him or mention them in public in case it offends someone who should be minding their own business. Yeah, I'm fine,
He said sarcastically. I'm sorry, I said, aware that the director was going apoplectic behind us. Let's talk about it later, after filming,
There is no after filming.
said Martin grumpily.
There's very precious little time spare to be had, and what there is spent learning lines, and I'll dare someone just talk to you backstage, someone looks at me funny. I'm tired of all this make-believe. I want something real.
So saying, he walked over the roulette screen in the corner, where all the CGI was going to be added later, and tore a hole in it with his antlers.
You can't walk out your contract like that.
Called the director.
Write me out then.
Said Martin.
I don't care. All I know is that I can't do this anymore.
I ran over to him, putting my arms around him.
Martin,
I said, it's all right. When filming is finished, we'll take a break, fly somewhere in a shuttle where they don't screen this programme and no one knows who we are. It will be like our characters, travelling the stars and enjoying each other's company.
no.
Said Martin evenly. Not angrily, not sadly, just detached.
The trouble with going on holiday is that you have to come back to work again and act like nothing has changed. But it has. I really like you, Claude, but I can't ever have you. I see that now.
Just because of what your people might think, I asked. Never mind your people, move to Camalosian with me.
Because of what everyone will think.
He replied.
Everybody. If they know the show, And it will be, did you know those two companions got it together once in series 388? If we don't know this show, but know me from something else, it will be, did you know about that Maggrumph factor? I wonder if he's back with his co-star in this series too. Or maybe I will never work again, and I will be forgotten, but for the rest of my life, anybody who read an article will point to me in the street and laugh, and everything I achieved will be for nothing. Oh, I can't take it anymore. I'm tired of being hidden away as if I've done something wrong.
I glanced at June and the production team, who were talking in hushed voices. This was easily the longest thing any Maggrumph had ever said in the history of their planet ever. And for once, even as long-winded a Camalosian as I had run out of words to put this right. I can see you're hurt, I said. I understand why, but please, we'll get through it. Don't end things like this. Filming is over soon. We'll feel better then, and we don't have to look at each other all day and remember what we were. He looked up at me with pain in his eyes.
But I want to look at you. I want to look at you for the rest of my life. I just can't stand people looking at me and wondering if I'm looking at you because of my character, or because it's me, every day, for the rest of my life.
He walked away from me.
I'm sorry, I can't do this.
So your only choice is to leave? I asked, my heart breaking. Just as he was heading out the door, Martin looked back.
I'm so glad I met you, you know. I wouldn't have missed any of the little time we had together, even for all the pain it's causing now.
Juna walked over to us, who was clearly upset too.
Please, Martin,
She said.
we're a team. There's no I in team.
He looked back.
Maybe not, but there is one. I don't care.
He looked back at me.
Claude, don't worry, you'll find someone else. People like us, we're more common in the universe than you think, you know. And really, I was no one special.
And he stormed off, leaving June and I to look at each other.
Oh dear,
Said June to me.
he was always a bit touchy, quite unprofessional sometimes. He was so much better since you joined.
Really? I said.
Oh yes,
She squeaked.
he barely said a word to me for the first year and a half. Then when you came along, it was almost as if you couldn't shut him up. Maggrumph standards.
We looked at the antler-sized hole in the screen that was being repaired by the technicians.
He's not long for the show, is he?
She said. I shook my head. No, and I have a feeling he's going to leave a hole much bigger than that when he leaves. I wish he didn't care so much what the universe thought about us. June nuzzled my shoulder.
It's different from the Grumps, remember?
She said.
Their society is all about caring what people think of social status, of making out that you don't care, when really you care deeper than just about any other species on the planet. No wonder they all end up such jealous so-and-sos.
I sighed. So what do we do? June smiled.
There's nothing we can do, I'm afraid. A solid vegetable peeler doesn't have a setting for a broken heart, even though us Time Rodents are blessed with two.
Our Belobrat producer walked in backstage, looking unusually sombre in all three heads.
My seniors have had a word in my ears. The show's in trouble. They've demanded changes they think will improve our ratings. Really are changing mostly. A move to Monday evenings up against Glad to Hardit's Coronation Eve. A change to 25 minutes an episode. Less episodes per season. Dropping all our carefully prepared detailed scripts set across all space and time for some hurried rush piece all set in a trial courtroom. Oh, and a change of casting.
What? I said. But the ratings are so high. We were just talking about it. The shows have been so strong lately.
No,
Said the producer.
it's not that. It's you.
Us, I gulped.
Specifically you two.
Said the producer.
Your fans, well, some of them, the noisier ones, have noticed what they call a gay agenda creeping into our programme.
He read out some letters at random.
It wasn't like this in the olden days. Never, never, ever. Well, okay, once or twice, but never like this. People should stop pushing a political agenda on the show. P.S. You should do more episodes like that classic one from hundreds of years ago, where the evil right-wing dictator got overturned for charging too much tax and thrown off the roof into a rubbish chute.
If I let my son watch, then they might start kissing every boy they meet, even though they've never done this to any girl they meet ever, despite all the other programmes we watch where this happens all the time. I'm deeply concerned how this one time might affect them differently.
This show about the universalness of the universe and how every point of view is expressed out of love, not hate, is valid, is made for us, not for you, So cut out the gay stuff.
My face fell. Martin looked sick. June was angry.
There's a small number of people who have to speak like that.
She said,
It always goes in cycles. There'll be another group of fans praising us for exactly the same thing in a week. You wait. Our fan mates are the best part of the show and the worst part of the show. They're like a causal nexus entity where everything exists all at the same time. Or something. Flows for want of techno-babble.
wait, I said. So let me get this straight. People are happy accepting the fantasy of an alien who can change his appearance and go anywhere in time or space. But the bit they have a problem believing is the legitimate love between two co-stars. The producer shrugged.
All I know is it has to stop. And I'm seriously thinking of writing one of you out.
You wouldn't dare!
Squeaked June.
This team works together really well.
Oh, you're safe.
Said the producer.
I know Habridats get worried, so I want you to know your job is safe.
No, it isn't. If they go, I go.
June squeaked.
If need be, I'll record a protest signal about it.
She began to sing.
Time Rodent nurse in distress.
It's all right.
Said Martin.
I'll go. Right now if you want me to. I was thinking of leaving anyway.
Don't be ridiculous, I said in alarm. We shouldn't be pushed around like this just because a small but vocal minority of the fan base think they run a show that's designed for everyone. You can't leave. We need you. It said so in this week's script. Martin scoffed.
Oh, that, Mark. They always make you seem extra useful and indispensable in your love story on this show. That way makes it seem sadder when you go. I'm nobody really. I just something to make June look as if she knows what she's doing.
We're both the stars, I said, waving to a sack on the floor. Do you see how much fan mail you get? That's for you, that is. Not the show. Said Martin dismissively.
That's just for the killed. Grumps like seeing my news.
I like your needs too, I said, leaning over him seductively. Anyway, as important as you are to the programme, and as much as I don't want you to go for professional reasons, well, I don't want you to go for personal reasons either. I always dreamed of this, of meeting somebody I could trust, that I felt safe with, that I could be my true self with. How can I do that after you're gone? Martin reached out and clutched me, pulling me as close to his lap as he could while we were both wearing seatbelts.
Brave heart, Claude.
Claude, he said.
You'll find someone. I know you will. I always knew I wouldn't last in this job forever. 3 years is a good run for a companion. I've had my time. We made our point. It will always be out there for the fans who come after us to see it. I'm not going to wreck the shows I love so much. There is a space and a time for everything in the universe. And this was mine.
Where are we, nurse? I called as we walked out onto another alien planet. It was spring, and the CGI alien flowers were blooming, but inside I felt like things were dying. I glanced at my co-stars. June was her usual happy self, but I could tell that recent events had got to Martin. He was taciturn and grumpy, even for him. Where are we this time too, nurse? I asked, as we dangled off the intergalactic table in a universe black as night.
It's the very beginning.
Said the nurse.
Or is it the end? I forget. They do both look the same, you know. Something coming from nothing, then going back to nothing again. The universe is full of it, all the time. Comings, goings, nothing ever stands still.
What do you mean?
Asked Jamie.
It's the big one,
She squeaked.
the big heap. Though you know it is the Big Bang. We time rodents know that the universe started not with a jolt, but with a leap.
Just think, I said. So few people in the universe have ever seen the beginning of time.
Oh, I have.
Squeaked the nurse.
In fact, there are 5 of my earlier selves over there.
The nurse waved back at her earlier self as he pointed to a broken spring and giggled. In a later incarnation, we saw a confused Earth girl who seemed to be clutching melting lipstick for some odd reason, while another incarnation of my friend seemed dressed for cricket, and not the Eurasian art chirping kind either. He was another human, I think, though oddly he had celery in his lapel, like a Glabdahardid. Behind them, a spaceship came out of nowhere and jettisoned a bunch of fuel. A capsule containing a key to time burst into splinters. An antimatter universe was created at the same instant, causing everything to briefly look very orange. When a Jaguar spaceship arrived, it really was most busy. But I only had eyes for Martin,
Just think.
said the nurse.
Everything we ever knew about the universe hangs in balance, good and bad. Everything. Right now the universe still has the chance to be perfect before we all get involved and muck everything up so that it goes wrong.
Let's hope we get a better, kinder, fairer universe this time then, I said.
Oh,
Keep the nurse.
everyone gets the universe they deserve. We are the ones who shape it after all of us.
Life is full of endings,
Martin said,
it's nice to know you can go back to what you lead again to.
and he looked at me sadly, with that secret smile again. Only this time it was a sadder secret smile.
Anyone fancy some breakfast?
Asked the nurse, pouring out some intergalactic cereal from her pocket.
It's the first meal of the day after all. Seems a good time to have it.
We were back in our shuttle bus, heading towards our hotel, and perched uncomfortably on the back seat. It was the first time we'd had a chance to be alone together since we found out about the newspaper reports. You're leaving us to join the cast of Life on Mars? I asked, aghast, holding out the paper. Seriously? A time-travelling crime drama set in the past? One of those red herring set policemen got that we haven't got? I was hurt. I was angry. I was also incredibly distracted by the sight of my co-star half-dressed backstage, but I was desperately trying not to show it. Martin shrugged.
I was going to tell you, darling,
He said.
but some reporter found out and broke the story before we could tell you. I'm sorry.
But why, I asked, all my Camalosian vocabulary failing me. Stuff what our producer said. We're going to work together to fix it. Refuse to quit.
Change, my dear,
He said, quoting from our show.
and not a moment too soon.
My heart fell. For all our wonderful programme's virtues and its strong liberal message about the universe being kind and treating people together as equals, I knew there were places even we hadn't reached yet, and it made me sad. It was just a programme after all. I found myself saying, just because people listened to what we said to them, it didn't mean they actually heard it. You see, I believed in it so much, even though I knew it was make-believe. The way that our messy, frightened, fragmented universe so often fell short when set against the colourful fantasy of our show often made me sad, especially as I got to spend over half my waking life in this other world, the one where good people could defeat bad people and make everything right. I sometimes forgot that when we defeated the monsters on screen, we still had them left to fight at home, and that here it was harder to tell who was the monster and who was just misguided rather than evil, lost, isolated and scared by the inevitable change that was spreading across the universe and making one last angry roar of protest against it. When do you leave? I asked, trying not to get emotional. On Story's time, Martin replied.
So we have a little more time filming together. We'll still see each other. I'll come and visit. Lots.
No, you won't, I say sadly, remembering how it had been for me on every acting job so far. I always promised to come back and visit my old co-stars, but I never did. Once the studio doors shut on you, they very rarely ever open again.
No,
admitted Martin, realising that he was better off being truthful to a Camalosian.
I probably won't, will I?
To my surprise, he looked suddenly very sad and alone, so even though I had been ready to chew his antlers off not 2 minutes ago, I reached over and gave him a hug. It was hard to stay mad at him for very long. We stayed like that for a moment, the eternal march of time that so hung over us on this show, held at bay for a few precious minutes, each of us trying to say everything that needed to be said with our eyes, until our shuttle car finally made it to our destination, and we didn't have the luxury of being alone anymore. We were on Earth, and the seasons had moved on to winter.
I'll save you, Camalosian,
cried Jamie Maggrumph as he clambered his way up the side of Jodrell Bank, the rickety structure swaying in the breeze as I clung on for dear life. Above us a rogue Time Rodent with a black beard and leather gloves was eeping to himself, arms folded. Behind him, unseen, the nurse was doing something really clever with a sonic vegetable peeler and reversing some sort of reel-to-reel tape that had been connected to an electronic device, clearly not from this century. Laughed the figure in black before he heard Neep that was clearly familiar to him and turned round in surprise.
Oh no, he cried. My master tapes. That's right.
Neep the nurse.
Now you won't be able to subject the universe to the Spice Girls nor evil subliminal messages ever again.
And she raised the sonic vegetable peeler and the magnetic tape clattered harmlessly to the floor, wiped. By now Jamie was halfway up the tall mast, swaying in the wind.
Got you.
he said to me as he reached out to take my claw. But just as our hands touched, the Glabderhardit in black pressed a button on his tissue compression eliminator, and a burst of tissues flew out into the sky, whooshing past Jamie's antlers and unbalancing him. I struggled to grab hold of him, but he lost his footing and fell to the ground, plummeting using the best HD CGI effects money could buy. "Jamie!" I cried in despair, while the nurse eeped in horror, until Jamie's body finally made an impact with the ground. Without a word, a small ghostly Glabderhardit figure in a sort of transparent shadow rushed over to Jamie's body, merging with it and staring back at us from the ground. The Time Rodent pressed a solid vegetable peeler, and a hidden stairway came out of the building. She grabbed me as she went past, and we whooshed downwards until we were beside our fallen friend.
I'm sorry I didn't do this earlier.
She eeped.
But we needed a distraction. I didn't know Jamie would lose his balance for silly old Maggrumph.
"Who is that?" I called to the nurse, staring at the shadow.
A squeaker.
Explained the Time Rodent.
He comes at moments of great tragedy. A ghost from our future timeline, when something is a nexus causal point that cannot be changed, and he's been following us for some time. I think I know why now. It's time.
She said.
You knew all along, didn't you?
She called to Jamie.
This was the figure you saw earlier that you said was a ghost.
"Yes," said Jamie sadly, his antlers drooping. "But why did you risk everything then, you clodpole? You knew you were in danger. You should have stayed in the Jardis with your feet up, drinking a cup of tea," I called.
Of course not.
Harumphed Jamie.
I had to keep you safe. I had to face my fear. That was more important than going on Maggrumph across the universe. My life that crazy paving. I so longed to be useful to the universe at last.
Jamie smiled that special smile, one last time in character.
Don't worry, my friends. It's the end. The moment has been prepared for.
"Oh, Jamie, I don't want you to go," I said quite genuinely.
A tear.
Jamie asked.
Camalosian.
"You'll be gone forever," I sobbed. "And forever is a long time, even with a time machine."
Wow,
said Martin Jamie.
One day I should come back. Yes, I should come back. Till then there must be no tears, no regrets, no anxieties, no antlers. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.
"You're the noblest Maggrumph of them all," I say. I was close to breaking point by now.
Don't worry,
Jamie said, or at least his character was the one saying it, but I could tell that Martin wasn't acting now, as his eyes twinkled at me. This was too real, and he was trying to pass on a message and make it count.
You know what? You were fantastic,
he said.
And you know what? So was I.
"No," I cried, far beyond acting by this time and ad-libbing wildly. "Please, don't leave me. I don't want to carry on in the universe without you."
It's all right, you silly Camalosian,
Martin ad-libbed back, while June's face was a picture behind us, trying to follow us as we went off script.
I'm nobody. There will be others, you wait and see. I was just as special me because I was the first me you ever met.
"I'm the best," I cried, holding his hand. I could see June glancing at the director now. "There will never be another you. Never, ever, ever."
Don't say never ever,
said Martin, holding my stare.
Through the universe history, there are so many miracles out there to discover. Just do me a favour and remember me sometimes, won't you? Don't forget me.
I could see my friend forming the name Claude on his lips before remembering and pronouncing the name
Camalosian
instead, just in time. "Oh, Jamie," I cried, breaking down for real now. "Don't you forget me." My friend shut his eyes, and I realised sadly that the only time I would ever see them twinkle again from now on would be on screen, in character, shared with the rest of the universe, not kept especially for me secretly, the way they had been till now. "Get him back!" I snarled angrily at the nurse, taking poor June by surprise. I'd gone way off script now. "You're a Time Rodent. You can do anything. Go back in time and put things right. The universe needs him. I need him."
I can't.
said the nurse, June's voice even squeakier than usual with emotion.
There was a fixed point in time. I don't have that power. I could. You know I would.
"But he was too good," I sobbed. "Too kind, too sweet, too gentle, too generous, too full of life, too good looking in a kilt to be dead. He was worth a quadrillion of me, of anybody. How will we ever cope without him? We'll never see his like again. He showed me how to be brave, how to care, how to be myself, in a universe that never allowed me to be any of those things. He gave me confidence and supported me in everything I did. I owe him so much that I can never tell him. As much as the universe used to treat him as a grumpy dour monster, deep down he really was the best of us. I will never get over this, ever, ever, ever. Beneath me I felt Martin's eyes flicker as he stared up at me gratefully, perhaps longing to say something similar to me, but unwilling to break character, as he was meant to be dead. My energies finally spent, I flopped down over his body and held it as tightly as I dared. One last time.
We will always remember him and what he stood for,
said the nurse, realising that she could finally get us back on script. Silently she unrolled her scarf and placed it on top of the still figure.
But now it is time to go. We owe it to our friend to carry on fighting for the good fight in his name. For somewhere, out there, universes are burning. Somewhere there's danger. Somewhere there's injustice. Somewhere there are cities full of song. Somewhere a doomsday giant is burning their toast. And somewhere a clandestine tea is getting cold. Come on, Camalosian. We've got work to do.
Slowly she took my claw and led me silently to the time-travelling table as snow fell silently over Jamie's still body. Standing in the doorway, I took one last sad glance back at him as the credits rolled in silence, bowing my head in sorrow. And just like that, he was gone. I sat alone at the backstage table, picking at my meal without really seeing it, when June came over.
Hey!
She squeaked sidling up to me.
He'll be all right, you know. This is what he wanted.
I looked up at her. Maybe, but it's not what I wanted. I would have gladly risked everything to be with him, but he wouldn't risk it to be with me. All this time I thought he was the brave one, but in the end he was more scared than me,
It's not that.
said June kindly.
He didn't want you to risk all to be with him, to lose your career for him. He was braver than you think. He sacrificed you.
I sighed. Sacrifice for what? My life will never be the same again. He was the one for me. I know it. In the whole of space and time there will never be another. Just then we were interrupted. Oh no, I groaned inwardly, of all the time for autographs. But it wasn't a fan,
Hello,
said the feathery face as he sat next to us.
I'm Habridats Sullivan. I'm joining the cast next week, and as I was passing, I thought I'd just pop in and say hello. Well,
He admitted.
I wasn't really passing. Truth is, I'm really nervous about joining such a popular and established cast. It's a dream come true joining you all. You're all so good, especially you, Claude,
He said, giving me a warm, secret, special smile while staring at me intensely. So intensely I had to break eye contact and look at the floor. Could it be?
Welcome to the Dream Team!
June obliviously, as Sullivan slipped his arm in mine and sat next to me, the three of us laughing away as if we had known each other for the whole of eternity, fully joined in time and space.